Today, I want to share with you guys how you can add a little mojo into your audio with the Chord Mojo 2. Let's check it out. What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I wanted to hang on. I am feeling a little under the weather today, so I do apologize if that kind of comes across in this video, but this was important. I wanted to get this out to you guys. With that, I want to talk to you about the Chord Mojo 2. Now, this is a portable DAC amp, kind of like a dongle type solution, but it's bigger than that. From Chord Audio, it retails in at $650, and I want to send a big thank you to Audio 46, who sent this out to me for some extended listening time. I've listened to many products on this little portable device, and I'm very appreciative of that. Guys, if you haven't checked out Audio 46 online, I highly recommend that you do that. They have a plethora of audio products available. Also, if you happen to be in New York, they're in New York. Check out their storefront as well. All right, so let's take a deep dive into the build and the inputs and outputs of the Mojo 2, and then we'll talk about those features. So, first of all, this is a CNC milled high-grade aluminum, and it has got heft to it. This is actually 185 grams, so this is going to be a lot heavier than your typical dongle DAC solutions that you're going to have. On the bottom here, I really appreciate there are some rubberized feet, so this will not slide around on a desk when you do set it down. And then you're going to see the subtle branding of Mojo 2 on here, of Chord on here, and then underneath these colored buttons, which obviously these are not colored here right now, you're going to notice that it'll tell you the different functionality of the different buttons. Now, looking at the side, I suppose we could call this the right side. There are 5 inputs here. So let's run through those really quick. Now, starting on the left, you're going to notice there is a 3.5 auxiliary input. Now, this is actually a single and dual data 3.5 auxiliary input. Next to that, we're going to notice there is a USB-C input. Now, this is actually to plug into computers, mobile devices, things like that. That is not going to charge this unit. Next to that, we're going to notice 2 different micro USB inputs. Now, the first one here is just simply a micro USB input for whatever device that you want to plug into this. Then the second one is for charge only. In fact, it tells you that with that little battery icon there. You know, hit and miss. Some may like that. Some may not like the fact they use micro USB. Personally, I'm okay with that. It also coordinates into the fact that this is going to be utilized with the Chord Poly, which is an add-on device you can use to turn this into a wireless streaming package. So another reason why they chose that. And then lastly, we're going to see an optical input, and the optical input, again, is to use different devices for that. Now, going around to the opposite side of that, we're going to notice 2 3.5 auxiliary outs. This is so that you can actually plug in 2 different devices at once. Now, this is unique and something that can be a lot of fun. So if you got like a friend or something with you and you both want to listen to IMs or headphones or whatever, the same music, you can plug them both in. Personally, for me, as somebody that likes to do videos and reviews and things like that, it's very handy for A/B testing. There is one thing to note with that, though. They each share the same volume. So you're not going to be able to adjust the volume for the left or the right. They're both the same. So you got to be careful that you're not plugging in something harder to drive in one and then maybe something very easy to drive on the other port. You're going to have some wonky volume going on for whoever's listening, but as an A/B testing type feature, it's going to do perfectly fine. The other thing I will tell you about the 3.5 out, you can actually use this as a DAC and go right into your own amp if you would like to do it that way as well. Now, let's go ahead and run through the features next. Obviously, this is a DAC and amp in one. Let's make no mistake about that. It goes up to 768 kilohertz. Now, the only thing I will tell you is if you use the optical input, that's only going to get you 96 kilohertz. It is a 256 DSD, and it also has an ultra high definition DSP EQ feature as well, which is, honestly, it's awesome that it has it on this little device. And then there is also a crossfeed mode for the features. And crossfeed is basically a way to make this more speaker-like of a sound, which I'll talk about that in a minute as well. And then the buttons. Now, I am not going to run through all the different use case of the buttons simply because there is a manual for this and there is a little bit of a learning curve. I'm not going to lie to you when it comes to the Mojo 2 or Chord products, just because there's no digital, reading on here telling you volume or things like that. You're going to need to understand what the different colors means. Honestly, does not take long to figure out. But what I will tell you is that this first button here, I suppose if you're looking at the front, it would be on the left. That is actually the menu or mode button. The two middle are going to be your volume up and down and adjustments up and down. And then the last one is going to be your button to turn this power on or off. It's also going to light up different LED colors based on the bit rate of the file that you got coming through. So, think of the different quality of files you can get there. This is not MQA compatible. Shucky darn, right? All right, so talking about, first of all, the volume, I can tell you that there is a low and high volume segment on this. Now, if you basically turn this all the way down to no color at all twice, that's going to be the lowest volume range. It'll go up and then it'll reset the colors and you go into the high volume range. So think of that as low gain, high gain type scenario. Really like that because that gives you a chance to plug in something really sensitive like some IEMs or something and give you a broader range of your volume spectrum. Now, the DSP EQ feature, I gotta take a few minutes and talk about this because I'm not somebody that typically likes to EQ, but this is so fun to do on this device and it's pretty simple. So I can tell you that there's only 4 levels of EQ. You're actually gonna get 2 in the bass region. One is at 20 Hertz and the other one is at 125 Hertz. And then you get 2 in the treble. One's at 3K and the other one is actually at 20K. What's nice about it is they are shelves. So the bass is going to be I got to think which way you guys are looking at me here, but if this is the bass, the shelf goes up and that way. So basically what I'm saying by that is that if you're using like something like 125, it actually isn't right at 125. It might be more like somewhere in the 130, 140 range and gives you that shelf and then continues down through the sub bass region. 20, just like it sounds, is going to be into the sub bass, but it's going to start somewhere above 20 Hertz down under. And then when you go up to that treble region, yes, it's 3K, but it actually kind of starts, if you look at their graph they have in the manual, somewhere around probably 1.5 to 2K, and it starts to elevate up, and then it's a shelf into the treble region, and then 20K is the same thing, starts a little bit ahead. I like the functionality of that because it's a range, it's not a dead stop, it's not a bump or anything, and you can adjust it 1 dB at a time up to a positive 9 dB or a negative 9 dBs, and it's very simple to use, guys. It really is. Now, the other really nice feature of this is the crossfeed. And when I first looked at it, I didn't think I was really going to use it that much, to be honest, because what it basically is, you get 4 levels of it: off, minimum, moderate, and maximum. It is going to mimic listening to a speaker system. And what I'm going to kind of explain here is you have a pair of headphones or you have IEMs, you have right channel, left channel, right? Then you have your head. Head's always in the way. And when you listen to personal audio gear, that's very separate. If you're listening to speakers in front of you in front of a room, that's very open. You're going to hear the right and the left. You're going to hear the left and the right. Well, that is what crossfeed does. It takes some of those left channel sounds and some of those right channel sounds, and it will basically intermix those in a way to give it a more room-filling type sound. Think of like soundstage, expansive. Think of like watching movies, playing video games. That's actually the use case that I used it on, was video games, movie watching, and live performances. It is excellent. It is done very tastefully well, in my opinion, and you get 3 different levels, so if you don't want to crank it up high, you don't have to. It's just something I recommend anybody checking out with this unit. Now, the other thing that is not in the manual is the fact that you can use this as a DAC. So basically, you just need an adapter, which this is a simple RCA adapter. So it's your left and right channel on one, and it terminates to a 3.5 mil port on the other. You basically plug this in and your RCA goes to your amp, and you can use this as a DAC. Now, if you do a simple Google search, you're gonna find that if you turn the volume up to around the double cobalt on the higher gain mode, that's about gonna give you 1.9 volts to 2.3, somewhere in that range, which is about the standardized that you wanna get for a single-ended DAC to go into your amp to give you good quality of sound. Now, obviously, if you got an amp that can take some overvolting or something like that, you can play around with it. You know, your ears can be the judgment. If you're starting to hear distortion, you turn it down. But it is a really nice way to use this as a DAC, because let's be honest, guys, I mean, the size of this thing is not the most portable that we've seen, and this makes a really good desktop solution should you choose to go that way. I don't want to forget to talk about the battery as well, because this battery takes about 8 hours on average before you're going to need to charge it again. And it does tell you with this little LED that's going to be underneath your micro USB where it's at on the charging status. The different colors represent that. And then when you're using the Mojo 2, one of the power lights is going to actually tell you the charge status as well. But what is really nice is that FPGA technology I talked about that they incorporate with the DAC, it's also a power management system so that this can be an intelligent desktop mode. And basically you can leave this plugged in and it's going to stop charging once it hits max, and you can use it again just like a desktop. Or if you are charging it overnight, it's not going to overcharge, it'll shut the charging off, which I really appreciate. That will extend the longevity of a device like this because batteries don't last forever, let's be honest. All right, now with all those features out of the way, I do want to definitely talk about the sound of the Mojo 2. I have listened with IEMs, headphones of all different types with this device for quite a while now. And what I can tell you from a sound standpoint of this device, it is just very clear to me. And please listen to me when I say this, because I had a talk with a friend of mine, and to him when I said clear, he thought I meant thin. It is absolutely not thin sounding at all. Clear to me, the way I will describe it to all of you, is just, it gives you a very clear image of the details that you're going to get out of the device that you're listening on. And it does it in a way that is room filling as well. And that is without using the room filling crossfeed feature that I talked about. So the low end, I think, gives me just a little bit more information and just a little bit of thickness. Now I'm talking about into the sub bass region. That's kind of what I feel out of this. And this has a very strong upper mid-range into treble, just clarity to it. It's very coherent and is just a fantastic way of giving you your music information and your audio information without coloring it up. You know, when I think of tubes or, you know, even like R2R DACs or something like that, those can kind of color the sound a little bit. And that's why I said, to me, this is very clear. And hopefully that kind of explains why I call it that way. Now, of course, the headphone or IEM is going to make a difference on if that continues to sound that way or not. I'm just saying in general with everything I listen to. I can definitely tell you IEMs on this have an excellent noise floor to where I got some nice black background. I didn't have any issues with noise just because of that very wide range of volume that you can get out of the Mojo 2. Something like my SIMGOT EA1000. You know, the SIMGOT IEMs can be very aggressive into the upper mid-range. They don't lose that at all on the Mojo 2. But guess what? EQ feature, that 3K region, I bumped that down just a couple of dB, and that made it more of a, I guess, less fatiguing listen on some of the SIMGOTs, depending on which, you know, driver filter tunings and things that I used. And was kind of the same way with the Aria Organic. By the way, the Aria Organic was one of the favorite headphones that I paired up with this. It's a super easy to drive headphone, so it was easy to power with the Mojo 2. And again, just had that nice room filling sound to it and just some nice thickness down low. This does give a decent amount of attack to notes as well. So it's not going to be limp at all or anything like that or weak sounding. It's going to have a nice musical nature to it. The Organic 2 was just a nice pairing. Of course, it got a little bright. Again, you can use some of that EQ if you want to tone that down a little bit. I didn't really touch it. I kind of like the sound I got just naturally out of that. And the other one I gotta say sounded really well was the Dan Clark E3. Many people have talked about the Mojo 2 and the E3 being like the perfect match. Honestly, guys, they are. Like, I really love the sound of the Mojo 2 on the E3 for all the things that the E3 is and all the things that this lends to the E3 to make it more of that clear-natured sound that I talked about without being fatiguing or anything like that. And then my ZMF headphones. The O-Tour Classic is a 300 ohm dynamic driver headphone. It actually powers it just fine, the Mojo 2 does, and gives it good volume, and actually was a nice and full listen. I was pleasantly pleased by that, because I will tell you, my ZMF Atrium Closed was not. I didn't get a lot of that mid-range fullness that I wanted out of the Atrium Closed, and I think that shows some of the limitations you're going to have with the power on this device. But I got to tell you guys, there's still enough power here for probably 90%, maybe higher than most of the audio gear that you're going to plug into this. By the way, I did not touch on the power. I apologize for that. This does 90 ohms. 90 ohms. That would be a lot. This actually does 90 milliwatts out of 300 ohms, and then it will do 600 milliwatts out of 30 ohms. So you got to think 30 ohms is kind of the standard for a lot of headphones and IMs and things. That's a lot of power, guys. It's plenty of power for most things when it comes to that nature. Now, when I use this as a DAC and plugged it into an amp, again, it had that flavor going into the different amps. I paired it up with my Schiit Midgard, and it made the Midgard sound exactly like it should, in my opinion. And the differences between something like this and my Bifrost 264 was probably just a little less of that impact that I get with the 264, but it was a open sound. It was even a little bit more open of a sound with this as a DAC going into something like the Midgard. A little sneak peek, I've got the Enlium in that I'm just really excited to have in, and that was like just a mic drop moment when I plugged this in as a DAC into the Enlium and heard that sound out of that amp. Wow, that's a little upcoming preview for you guys. But then I even plugged it to things like my Schiit Magni or even my Cayin HA-3A. This just did really well as long as I was on the right volume that I needed to be using this as a DAC. And then the crossfeed features, that is just another level of performance that you get out of this and just makes it more fun because you use that crossfeed, you give it more of that open feeling. Suddenly you take a headphone that maybe is a little too intimate and it does open it up a little bit. Is it going to change some of the sound quality? Sure, of course it is, but not so much on the things that I tested anyway that I felt like I lost out completely. It was just a fun way to do it and really change up your audio. You use the crossfeed as well as EQ, and really, you know, you can cater a lot of things to the nature that you want it to be with the Mojo 2. So now lastly, I did compare this to my Cayin RU7 simply because that's my dongle DAC I have, and I love that dongle DAC. Is this a step up from that? Yes, it absolutely is. As much as I love the RU7 for everything that it is, this has that more open and clear sound, like I said, and just man, room filling sound without that crossfeed, even more so than the RU7. But the RU7's still a damn good dongle DAC, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying if you're going to spend more, you should expect more performance. You get more performance out of this when you step up to something like this. Now let me tell you about the things that I dislike about this unit before I wrap this up. So I will say, you know, the portability of this is going to be a little bit wonky for some people because when you plug in your inputs to this side, your outputs to this side, that's like a dongle DAC is, but then the weight added onto that, it's going to make it a little hard when you're wanting to carry this around. They do make cases for this, but I think that's one semi drawback. The learning curve of the buttons, it's not going to be for everybody. Honestly, I have a lot of fun with it. And then just the power of this. Now, I'm okay with the fact that this is only unbalanced with the 3.5 out. I don't mind that they didn't use balance just because it's been plenty of power for almost anything I plugged into it. But you're not going to be able to drive a tungsten with this or a Sysvara or some higher impedance, harder to drive headphones. I get that. You're going to have, you know, some limitations there, but still, this is going to take about 90% of the things that you're going to want. And I think we also have to address the fact that this is a battery inside the unit, so batteries don't last forever. So that's always going to be a drawback of something that is going to be battery powered, even though you can use this as a desktop mode when you just leave it plugged in, which I definitely like that they added that into it. But those are the few of the dislikes, guys, but this is on my list. I will own this one day soon because it is a fantastic unit. I'm going to keep my RU7, but this will make a nice step up and a nice portable solution that I can just put on my desk, and so many nice features of it. So I highly recommend the Chord Mojo 2. It's nothing new. It's been out a couple of years, but I was very excited to get my time with it. And I thank you, Audio 46, again for allowing me to do so. Just like I thank all of you for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this, guys. If so, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel because, well, I kind of told you about some things that I have coming up here very soon. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.